So, welcome to our webinar about the new exchange color space eciCMYK FOGRA53. My name is eciCMYK. I work here at GMG in the Academy. And let's see what we are talking about today. So, why is there FOGRA53? So, why has this new characterization dataset been developed? We will have a closer look at the characteristics of FOGRA53, especially have a look at the paper tint in comparison to other characterizations, and have a look at the separation. And of course, in the end, we will talk about what does that mean for me, or what does that mean for you as users? What should you do now with FOGRA53? Okay, so let's just dive in and have a closer look at FOGRA53. So the need for FOGRA53 is there because today, especially in Europe, FOGRA39 is mainly used as an exchange color space. So when the output condition is not known, FOGRA39 is used as proof, as output intent, as image color space, whatever. So color communication and color exchange is done with FOGRA39. But the problem is FOGRA39 is not a process-independent color space. FOGRA39 describes offset printing according ISO 12647-2. So when facing digital machines as output conditions, FOGRA39 is too small, since digital machines often have a much wider color space, especially when they have additional inks. So when they print with more inks than just eciCMYK. Another point is that FOGRA39 is already outdated. It has been replaced by FOGRA51, which is the actual description of a print according ISO 12647-2 on coated paper. Okay, so FOGRA39, when used as an exchange color space, is a bottleneck. There are already a lot of exchange color spaces in the different areas. So the idea of having an exchange color space is not new. So for instance, we have the GMG Color Master. So why not use these existing color spaces? The GMG Color Master, for instance. The GMG Color Master pushes for an RGB workflow, meaning the idea behind the Color Master concept is that all your image data is kept as long as possible in RGB. All the retouching is done in RGB. And just at the point where you go to your output condition, so the final printing data, you convert your data to eciCMYK. FOGRA53 targets on a eciCMYK workflow. So meaning you convert your images from RGB to eciCMYK, integrate them in your layout, everything is done in eciCMYK, and afterwards maybe you convert again into your output condition. Additionally, you can see this on the little screenshot at the right. So I just put the several color spaces, two-dimensional, on top of each other. You see that eciCMYK is pretty big in comparison to all of these color spaces. In the US, we have, since this year, 2017, there is a new exchange color space called eciCMYK. This color space is based on sheet fed offset. So it's not respecting digital output devices or the variety of digital output devices and the big color gamuts of these output conditions. The same is with CRPC7, which is as well a color space mainly used in the US. So it's published by CGETS. And all of these color spaces, as you see on the right, are smaller than eciCMYK, and they are smaller as many digital output color spaces. So the target was to have a color space respecting classical printing conditions, respecting the digital output conditions, so you don't have a bottleneck in your workflow. So let's just have a small look at the gamut viewer to compare all of these color spaces. So what we see here, the yellow grid is eciCMYK and the red solid is FOGRA53. So just as a comparison, you see it's a huge difference in the size of the color gamut. The same when comparing to, let's see, CRPC7, which is already quite big, but still there's space, especially in the yellow and in the green areas. I wanted to show you a comparison to an RGB workflow as well. Unfortunately, I'm having an outdated version of Gamut Viewer, so I took screenshots from my colleague's PC. I just recognized this today. So this is ECI RGB compared to ECI CMYK. So the CMYK color space is the solid one here in the middle. And of course here you see here. That's the correct image. Here you see, of course, the usual big differences you have between RGB and CMYK, for sure, still. But the attempt for ECI CMYK is to be in CMYK color space, which is still proofable, but you don't have the bottleneck of using a very small CMYK. So you keep the variety of your output conditions. That's it. Okay, I see there's a question in the chat, but you still have a difference on the L-axis. You mean talking about the gamut comparison, I think? Sure, you have a difference on the L-axis. We will see this when we talk about the paper tints. So the paper tints are different, and the paper tint of ECI CMYK has been created to have a good compromise. We will see in a few slides. Okay, again talking about the bottleneck situation. This is just a small example. I converted an image from RGB to here FOGRA39 and once to FOGRA53. And I hope all of you can see it on your monitor. So when I switch back and forth, you see ECI CMYK, especially here in the orange or in the lemons. You can see it quite good. It keeps the saturation. It is slightly lighter. Opa. And so this is, I mean, when you already know your output condition is FOGRA39, so is ISO 12647-2, you're fine, no problem. But if your output condition is unknown, then you should use FOGRA53 to not lose any color information you could reproduce on the digital output or on the output in the end. Okay, so when FOGRA53 has been developed, as I already said, many digital output devices and their color gamuts have been taken into consideration. So not only CMYK-based color spaces. So the goal was to have a characterization or to have a color space which complies to the typical output conditions you have. So the classic printing output conditions. And now let's talk about the paper tint. You already see the paper tint, it has an L value of 96.5, the A value is 1, and a B value of -3. So especially the B value is interesting since the more negative the B value, the more bluish the paper, the more OBAs are assumed to be on the paper. Of course, for having an exchange color space, you have to find the compromise, as it says here, for the variety of the substrates you are printing on, since there are a lot of substrates without OBAs and there are a lot of substrates with OBAs. So, of course, here we need to find the compromise. So, let's see. Let's have a closer look at the paper tints. This here we have a lot of points. I just used this diagram because maybe a lot of you know this already from the introduction of FOGRA51. So let's get rid of all the points. This is just to get a visual comparison of the difference in the paper tints. So we see FOGRA39, which has been replaced by FOGRA51, and FOGRA51 respects the typical printing paper in this printing condition, meaning you have a lot of OBAs. Therefore, you have the B value of -6. So we see now FOGRA53. Yes, we have a compromise here. We see as well we have a higher L value for the paper tint, so the gamut expands bigger. Okay, so my L axis is just higher here in this characterization. So for comparison, just for your information, you see the paper tints of the other color gamuts I was talking about. So this is just to make it clear to you what that means. Okay, I already see we have another question here in the chat, but I think I will keep it until another point of the presentation, but I will answer it in a second. Let's first have a closer look in the separation. So, what is different? For FOGRA53, we have a very colorful separation, so a very strong CMY and a very weak black, as you can see here on the screenshot. This has been done to enable easy retouching. So, almost according RGB retouching, when you have a very colored separation, this makes it a lot easier. On the left, you see the black channel of FOGRA39. This is a very common separation, no problem with that. But of course, for retouching, colorful separation is better. Okay. So the intention of FOGRA53 is just as an exchange color space. Okay, so it is not replacing FOGRA39 or 51. It's not describing an output condition. It's just for color exchange. You can still prove it. You can create your proof. So this is especially interesting when you have many different output conditions, or the output condition is already not really known. You can just create a proof in FOGRA53 and you already have an idea of what the color will look like. The intention then is that you use a device link profile from FOGRA53 into your output condition. So it may be that you convert from FOGRA53 into FOGRA51 before you print it. Okay, so FOGRA53, just that you don't get it mixed up, FOGRA53 does not describe the printing process at all. It's an exchange color space. Okay, so I will have a look in the chat since I see we have a few questions here. Okay, so FOGRA53 is a proofing condition. How would this translate to printing? Is there a new printing condition, new press curve, or is 53 a replacement due to the LAB of the paper? As I just said, FOGRA53 does not describe proofing, so there's no new press curve needed. It does not replace any characterization data due to the paper tint values. This was the case when FOGRA51 was introduced. So FOGRA53 is just meant for color exchange. A lot of people use today FOGRA39 when they don't have a clue in which condition the file will be printed. So in this case, FOGRA39 works as an exchange color space. And I described the issues we have with that situation. And just for that use case, FOGRA53 has been developed. So before you go to the print, there's always a device link converting from FOGRA53 into your printing condition. Okay, so no new press curve needed, nothing. I hope this is clear. So, can FOGRA53 be compared to the IKEA color space? Actually, yes. So, the IKEA situation is that they have to produce their catalog. They have different printers all over the world with different papers. So a lot of different output conditions. They use the GMG Color Master as their exchange color space. And you could do exactly the same thing with FOGRA53. So in front of a lot of different output conditions, you will use an exchange color space. Okay. So does that mean that FOGRA53 is only an ICC workspace or a dedicated ICC output? It's an ICC workspace. No output, it's a workspace, exactly. So when a printer receives data in FOGRA53, he has to convert from FOGRA53 into his output condition, for example, FOGRA51. But that's all he has to do. No new press curves, nothing. So if it's an exchange color space, that should suggest we do not proof in FOGRA53. Exactly. You can proof FOGRA53, and you do this in the use case I just described with IKEA. So the advantage of this working practice is then that you only have one proof, and you say, okay, my colors are fine, and then you go into all the different output conditions. Of course, in the different output conditions, you are not 100% as in your exchange color space, but it makes your workflow a lot easier. So when you think of the IKEA situation, there it really makes sense to work this way. Otherwise, of course, you would prove your output condition to have exactly color accuracy on your proof. Okay, another question. So if we use FOGRA53 for a more precise color saturation, for instance, and if we have to translate it to FOGRA39 or 51, we will then lose the saturation. Yes, of course, in this case you lose it, but just imagine you have now your layout, you convert it to FOGRA51, for instance, and then afterwards you say, I have to reprint it, I have something different to print, but this time I will go on a digital device. And in this case, you win since you have still your higher saturated layout file, and this file you convert to your digital output, and then you gain or you take advantage of the bigger color gamut of this color space. Okay, how to handle uncoated characterization data. Maybe just to make it clear, if you already know your output condition, you don't have to use FOGRA53. You just convert into your output condition and everybody's happy. But today there are a lot of files sent via email back and forth. Okay, where will you print it, whatever, and they are always or mainly prepared in FOGRA39 without even knowing will they be printed maybe uncoated, will they be printed digital, whatever. And just for that case, FOGRA53 is used. So of course you can, it's the same use case. You will convert from eciCMYK to an FOGRA uncoated, to FOGRA52, for instance, as output condition. So FOGRA53 is process independent. So let's have a quick look at the chat window again. Exactly. The use case for FOGRA53 is always before print, use a device link profile in our color server, for instance, but the ECI gives device link ICC profiles as well for download on their homepage. So you always convert from eciCMYK into your final output condition. That's the use case. You never send FOGRA53 on the printing press. Okay. And yes, exactly, this use case is comparable to an RGB workflow. A lot of questions, a lot of discussion. I really like it. So I just have to get all the questions. Why not just convert from RGB straight to the output profile? Sure, this is the attempt in an RGB workflow as it is in the GMG Color Master. A lot of customers actually work in CMYK. So there are a lot of customers which have their image data in eciCMYK and today mainly in FOGRA39. So it would be good if these customers have their image data in FOGRA53. Of course, my opinion, the best way is to keep your images in RGB color space. Okay. So FOGRA53 is already available, downloadable on the ECI page. The device link profiles are already integrated in our color server and in our color plugin. So you can start right now using it. So Now we have seen all the facts. We already answered a lot of questions. So maybe something will be doubled now, but I think that's no problem. So, okay, what does all that mean for you as a user? So we already had it. You use FOGRA53 when you don't know the output condition, or in the idea of a media neutral workflow, when you have different output conditions, a lot of different output conditions, for instance. Just as you used FOGRA39 before, when the output condition was unknown. Okay? So, when you're preparing print data and you don't know the output condition, you can use it, or you should use it as output intent for your PDF files. Here it is important to know that you can, or you must only use it as output intent when your images are converted to FOGRA53. So you cannot tag a PDF containing FOGRA39, for instance, with FOGRA53. The images have to be converted first. You can create a proof in FOGRA53 when the output condition is unknown, so at least you have something you can talk to with your customer. I already said, just update your color server. In our GMG color server and in our GMG color plugin for Photoshop, all the device link profiles are available. The ICC device link profiles are downloadable on the ECI page. So there is, in our color server, there is a conversion profile from FOGRA39 to 53, which is meant to convert existing image databases. There are device link profiles from FOGRA53 into all the printing conditions, so FOGRA53 to FOGRA51 to FOGRA52, and all of the printing conditions you can imagine. And there are separation profiles available to convert from RGB to FOGRA53 for your image data. The most important thing is just talk with your customers and your suppliers about FOGRA53. That's actually the most important thing. Just talk about it. Okay, so I still receive PDFs in FOGRA39. What should I do now? There's no need to convert to FOGRA53. If you print according FOGRA39 or ISO 12647-2, you are fine. The file is already prepared for the correct output condition. Otherwise, you convert your file from FOGRA39 into your output condition. Okay? So there's no need to convert all the data you get into FOGRA53. And again, communication is the key. Just talk with your customers, your colleagues, your suppliers. Hey, have you already heard about FOGRA53? Maybe we should try this as our exchange color space. There may be a lot of customers who don't really have the need to work with FOGRA53, since they just work with defined output conditions. And that's still fine. Okay, I see we have another question in the chat window. Let's just see. Okay, so if we prove in FOGRA53 and afterwards we convert into our output condition, of course we have a color difference. We have a color change. That's clear. But as long as my output condition is unknown, I still have the possibility to create a proof and to get an idea of how the colors will look like. So the next question. So from now, the ideal color management workflow for the PDF production should be made in FOGRA53. Yes. So when you have the need to use an exchange color space, use FOGRA53. That's correct. Okay. So if you want to have some more information, maybe even on just the other color spaces we talked about, here you will find it. So about FOGRA53, you get more information on the eciCMYK page itself and on the FOGRA page itself. So we already talked about the questions. As always, when you have any questions, just feel free to contact us. We are happy to help. And then, yes, you will receive the recording of the webinar, of course, afterwards. Tomorrow you will receive a follow-up email, and this email contains the link and the additional materials. Okay, so just some advertisement. If you have a look at our website, at our Academy website, you can see the training dates 2018 are already online. We have our new brochure launched. So maybe there is something interesting for you. And yeah, so thank you very much for your attention and the good discussion we had. And have a nice day. Bye-bye.